I am live. Oh my gosh. It never gets old. It's always a little adrenaline rush right when you hit the live button. I love it. Getting all crazy for property taxes. So ridiculous. One person in the world feels this way about property taxes. Really, what happens is I think about all the times I have left the ARB protesting room just livid, hot, mad because something didn't go my way and I just want to strangle somebody, and I just convert all that into the energy to go out and do live videos or protest for a bunch of people or make decisions that people would not usually make in the right mind. But here's the thing, man, the system is not fair. It is not okay what's going on. Something's got to change, and I'm going to do everything I can to change it. And the reason why is because I don't get paid to do this. There is one person that I know of that is out there that has the knowledge to be able to have the insight to do something about this, and doesn't really have anything to gain for it. And so I want to help as many people as I can right now, but I also want to solve this problem once and for all. So I'm going to just sound off for just a moment here and talk for a second while people get logged on. But I'm going to go over so much stuff today. The first thing I'm going to start off with is some quick and dirty stuff that I promised in the little teaser post, saying I've got a way. I rephrased it a couple times. I said one thing I'm going to do is teach you how to protest with minimal effort. And then the other one, I posted something saying I'm going to teach you how to protest without ever talking to someone at the appraisal district. One way or the other, I've got something that I'm going to teach you about protesting that will help anybody in any county. And even if you don't have any real evidence to win a protest, then I'll teach you why you should go ahead and file a protest, what you should do, and why it's important. So here we go. I'm really excited. So I'm going to go over this stuff, and then I'm gonna go over the quick and dirty stuff, and then I'm gonna go deep into all the other things that I can teach you about how this system is set up, why it's broken, every level it's broken at. It's layers upon layers of broken. I'll teach you what's broken about it and what we can do to fix it, what you can do to play a role into being the solution, and how we can bring about a permanent change in this whole system. So here we are. I'm just getting revved up as I see eyeballs joining, people watching, hearts and likes abounding. Like this video to encourage me. I get more excited the more you like. All right, here we go. People, I'll just keep the small talk going for 2 more minutes. I know that some people have taken off or are spending their lunch break watching this video. They've got a nice, great plate of food in front of them, and now they're gonna listen to property tax stuff for 30 minutes or an hour, or however long you have the stomach to hang in there while you're eating. I'll do my best to to give you solutions so it doesn't spoil your food. We just start talking about all the problems in the system, it's enough to make anybody lose an appetite. So hey, there you go. That's a new diet technique. Just focus on property taxes. You'll lose your lunch or lose your appetite. One of the two. I don't know which happens first. But here we go. Prosperity Now. What's up? Hey, anybody commenting below? I'll drag your comment onto the page. I've got this posted in 3 different places: my personal page, or Chandler Crouch Realtors company page, and my YouTube page. And before I get going, I'm about to kick this thing off right this second. But before I do, I just want to mention, if you've got a real estate license or you know someone that does, and they might want to come on board here, I am hiring. I actually need to hire a bunch of people, but I'm going to start with one next person. And so I need to find somebody that absolutely loves talking to people and gets passion and fulfilled out of serving people. All right, let's get this thing going here. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fulfill the promise that I gave you of how you can protest with. It says how to protest property taxes in any county quickly without talking to the appraisal district. And actually, this is a little bit of an error right here. How to protest property tax value in any county quickly without talking to the appraisal district. And here you go. First, I want to tell you why this is important. There is a brand new property tax law that was passed last legislative session. It is Law 23.01E. And what it does is it requires the appraisal district to present more evidence and have a stronger case against you if they're going to raise your property tax value the year after you have a successful protest. So what's a successful protest? I don't know. I think that some appraisal districts are probably adhering to this rule more than others. But here's the point. The reason why you need to protest is because of this new law. If you file a protest and get some final orders for your protest, then the odds that they won't raise it again next year go way up. And here's how you do this very quickly. Just go to Google and type in evidence affidavit property tax Texas. I'm sure that you don't have to put quite so much in the search blank, but the first thing that you'll see is this first link right here. It says property owner's affidavit of evidence. Just click that, and then you'll see the form come up. And what this is this gives you the ability to basically have this form go to the hearing for you so you don't have to. You just fill this thing out, and you actually don't have to fill out quite as many blanks as it appears you have to. You just put your name, your mailing address, make sure that this stuff matches the appraisal district's records exactly. Put your email address in there, put the physical address of the property. You don't have to put a legal description, but if you do, there's room for you to do that. And then what I would recommend is to check the incorrect appraised value box and the value is unequal box. And then if you just want to cover the bases, you could check the other box too, just to give yourself the ability to talk about anything else. But what this does, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what the market value, what this box means and what this box means. I'll tell you about what those mean here in a second. But for now, all you need to know is to check both those boxes, and that box isn't working for me right now for some reason. And then go down here and finish filling out the form. You can type in anything you want. Bananas are yellow, or whatever you want to put in there. And what'll happen is this form will go to appear at your protest hearing so that you don't have to, as long as you go down here and you check this box. I do not intend to appear at the hearing, either in person or by telephone call. This affidavit and as evidence and or argument submitted with it may be used for the hearing if I do not appear in person at the hearing. So what'll happen is if you type this, whatever you type in the blank, they will read this out loud, and then they'll submit whatever evidence you attach along with this document. They'll read that out loud in the protest hearing, and they'll conduct the hearing. They'll send you final orders. And if you don't like whatever they decided, then you can escalate it to the legal avenue, the arbitration, or you can sue them. Okay. But you have to take this step, and all you have to do is fill this form out, and you can attach evidence. You can make statements in here. I'll go over exactly what kind of evidence will be effective in your protest. But I would say, look, no matter what you have, just attach what you can, file your protest. You can send this in. You have to get this notarized, and then there you go. That is the quick and dirty secret that I have. Now, I will also give you a couple extra tips real quick before I start trailing off into a lot of other technical stuff. If you're in Tarrant County, I will protest for you, or you can go protest on your own. Just go to tad.org in the upper right-hand corner. You can sign in, and then there's an automated protest thing. I'll show you how you can get some instructions on that. If you go to my website, freetaxprotest.com/videos, let's see, videos, then you'll see all these videos that I've made, and they walk you through the whole process one step at a time. As this thing populates, I'll show you. You'll see the one in the top left corner teaches you how to do it, how to protest in Tarrant County from A to Z. Okay, this is the do-it-yourself method. If you don't want to do it yourself, just go to freetaxprotest.com and fill in your account number here, and then submit it, and I'll protest for you. The deadline for me to sign up with me is this Friday at midnight. Okay, that's the deadline to sign up with me. The deadline to file your protest, if you're going to file it on your own, it's Monday the 17th. Okay, so there you go. Now, I will also give you one more tip. If you bought your house this past year, all you have to do is take your settlement statement and send that into the appraisal district. In most counties, that's all you have to do, and then that can then they'll use that as evidence. And your purchase price, as long as you purchased it after January 1st, 2020, that purchase price was probably all the evidence you need to submit your protest and get a successful protest. Okay, so that is that. I'm going to go into all aspects of the property tax system. I'm going to teach you what's wrong with it, why we have so many problems. I have gone deep into this, and so I'm going to explain a little bit more about all the different layers of the process, and then all the different layers of the problem, and what you can do to play a role to help solve the problem, and how we can join together to solve this thing permanently. So before I do that, I'm going to take a quick breath and look at some of these questions. I'll answer questions, and then I will go deep. And so here's a teaser. Here's one teaser before I do this. Let's see. I like this question. Did you know that if you protest and win a huge reduction, the government does not receive any less money? Okay, there is a hint to one of the layers of the problem. I'll give you details on this. I'll explain how that's even possible. And then I'll explain to you how the politicians use this as a political tool to kind of, they'll do this whole deal where they jingle the keys over there and say, hey, look over here, while they're doing all sorts of hanky-panky on the other side. I'll teach you how that happens. So let me look at the comments first. If you have any comments or questions, just ask them in the comments block, and I should be able to see them, and I will bring your question up on the screen and answer it for you. I was hungry. Catherine says, I was hungry, but just thinking about taxes made me sick. Sorry, Catherine. Let's see here. Let's see. I applied for your help and haven't heard back from you yet. Should you be concerned? Hazel, go to freetaxprotest.com, click sign in the upper right-hand corner. You should be able to see the status of your protest. Let me show you where that is. So if you've signed up for our property tax service, then you can just go to freetaxprotest.com in the upper right-hand corner, click sign in here, sign in, and you'll be able to see the status of your protest just like that. Okay. So if you have questions, if you think that there might be some sort of error or something going on, just email protest@chandlercrouch.com. Again, protest@chandlercrouch.com. That's where you get the help. Hey, and if you guys see other people commenting in the comments here about questions like this, wondering if they're on our list or whatever, feel free to just reply to them on that thread and tell them to email protest@chandlercrouch.com. All right. Thank you for doing this. You got it. If I am protesting for you, do you need to send in more documents? The answer to that is it's not mandatory at all. But if you have photos of property condition issues, or you have invoices of repair estimates, or any of the things I'm going to talk about in this video, you can upload them through our website. Okay. If I'm protesting for you, don't file a protest on your own. I'm filing the protest for you. Okay. I'm going to skim through these and I'm going to get rolling here. I don't have anything. Thank you. Do rental properties get assessed differently? Great question. Single family properties do not. I'm going to come back and answer these questions because they're kind of getting ahead of things. There are some people asking questions that are really good questions. And if I don't go in order, then I'm going to leave the rest of you guys in the dark. So here we go. Stream. All right. So I will tell you how it's possible for you to win a huge reduction and the government still gets the same amount of money. Okay. You'll have to forgive me. I don't do this speech very often. And usually when I do, I'm going without any notes at all. And so my slides are a little haphazard. I'll just have to, I'll have to hunt and peck what I'm going to show you guys and just hang with me. So we'll get through it together. All right. So yeah, actually you're going to get to see all my slides and cheat like this. All right. So the first thing I mentioned to you is that you can just send in your settlement statement as evidence if you bought your house after January 1st, 2020, or use the affidavit like I mentioned. And if you didn't catch that, you'll just have to rewind in the video and watch it here soon. Okay. So here's the whole issue. In a country where we have the promise that we are able to pursue life, liberty, and property, and the government is supposed to defend our right to be able to do that, but yet the government is taxing people out of our houses, that is a problem. I have a moral issue with that. I feel like in America, if we own property, we shouldn't be taxed out of the property, especially if it's paid off. If your house is paid off and you continue to have to pay payments to the government, it almost feels like you're renting from the government, and in some ways you are. And there's a significant problem that I have with that, and there are and the reason why we have that problem is because we generate a significant amount of the tax revenue comes from our property taxes. But that's not the only place that it can come from. It can come from income tax, sales tax, property tax, or business taxes. And in Texas, we have made a constitutional amendment to outlaw income tax. Okay, so that income tax is not happening. But here's the deal. Out of all of these taxes, I really hate saying this out loud. I hate this. I hate saying what I'm about to say out loud. The only one on this list that really makes sense, that does not create the kind of issue we have now, is an income tax. I would not vote for an income tax. I'm not interested in income tax. I want to be able to make money without being taxed. But here's the deal. The income tax, if we are taxed on our income, then our ability to pay increases at the same time our tax burden increases. So they stay proportionate. On our sales tax, that comes at, or you could call it a consumption tax. When we pay taxes, or when we buy things, then we pay more tax. So our ability to pay doesn't increase. It's when we spend money, then our burden increases on that side. So it's not tied to our ability to pay. It's tied to how much we're spending. Now, property tax, which is where a significant amount of our taxes come from right now in Texas, that's not tied to our ability to pay either. That's tied to our assets. If your net worth is going up, then you might be worth more money, but your ability to pay doesn't really increase. And then you've got business taxes and that sort of thing. And then fees and I almost left number 4 off the list because it's fairly insignificant in Texas. But number 3, well, unless you're a business owner, then you can feel it. Number 3 is the whole issue here is the cash flow issue. Okay, it's a cash flow issue. You could be wealthy, you could be rich and have equity in tons of properties, and you could own all sorts of assets, but have no rental income or no cash flow income, no revenue coming in for you to be able to pay your taxes. You could actually lose your home. And you see that happening with a lot of people in lower property value areas where I get phone calls into my office on a daily basis from people crying, saying, I have no idea how I'm going to afford this property tax. I've got to figure out how I can sell stuff or cut out other bills to be able to pay this stuff. And it's not right. Once you own your property, the government should not be taxing you out of it. Now, I will say, in Tarrant County, at least, we usually have a pretty good tax assessor that's not going to start doing too many foreclosures based on property tax, but it does happen. So here's just a little pie chart that shows you what I just said. And this 47% number, the biggest part of this pie on the left, those are property taxes. I know it's hard to see. I'm going to say everything out loud so that you don't have to squint too hard and see it. And then it breaks down that property tax segment and tells you where everything goes to. And I can tell you out of this property tax pie on the right, the biggest section is our school district taxes. So the question is, well, how do we solve this problem? And is there a better taxing setup in general? If you go to my blog, I just posted it on my blog just to try and make the URL a little easier to navigate to. So I'm just going to go to chandlercrouch.com/blog. In the very first blog entry, all it is a link that shows you right here. So if you take this and click the link, then you'll see this is what we've done here is put a link to an article that shows you all the different taxing structures that different states have. And so you can go through here and look and see that Alaska is the best. New York has the highest taxes and Alaska has the lowest. And you think, well, how could we solve this problem? We could probably copy one of these guys, but I don't really have the solution for you. I don't know how to solve the problem. And I think that until it gets to be a bigger issue and until we're not fighting about gun laws or the border or abortion or those other things that have been occupying the legislators' time this legislative session, we're not going to get any property tax relief just because it isn't a priority. For some reason, they're just not focused on it quite so much. But these are the states that pay the least amount of tax. Now, this isn't just property tax. This is the least amount of tax of when you combine income tax and property tax and sales tax and everything. Alaska is doing better than everybody. And so I haven't heard a tax plan that I can stand behind because there's a problem with everything. Right now, we've got we were able to avoid the Great Recession, and we were able to avoid the housing bubble that affected so much of the country. And so that's a big plus for how our state is set up, like it or not. And another pro is that we're very pro growth. We have a great area for jobs and a great area. It's great for the Texas economy. And you think, well, that's part of the problem is we have so many people moving to this area, buying houses and paying out the nose. Have all these people from California moving in and paying, for the same house you'd pay $2 million for in California. You can come here and pay $300,000. And it seems like a bargain. They'll say, yeah, give me 3 of those. And so I don't want to change the fabric of what makes Texas great, but something has to change. People cannot be getting taxed out of their house. And so I've gone over some of this stuff. There are plenty of negatives. I don't have to tell you about the negatives. You cut the check to the property tax folks all the time. And so I want to explain, this is how the system is set up. And I'm going to go into exactly what we can do to solve this problem. But you need to know how the problem, how the system is set up and how your property tax bill is calculated. So it's this basic formula. It's the property value, your tax value of your home, multiplied by the tax rate equals your tax bill. Okay. And on the right side of this equation, I have tax bill written, but you could use other words instead of tax bill. You could call it the tax levy or the budget of these taxing entities. The property value multiplied by the tax rate equals what you pay in taxes at the core. That's exactly what it is. So the issue here exists on the state, regional, local, and personal levels. And I'm going to go through each one of these very quickly so that you can understand how the whole system is set up. And then I'm going to tell you what you can do to play a role in these. So at the state level, you have the state legislature. We have bad laws. It is the property tax code itself that is the biggest enemy. Then on the regional level, you have the appraisal district itself. The appraisal district that goes out and values the properties. There are problems at the appraisal district. Then you have the local level, which is the taxing entities. And when I say taxing entities, what I mean by that is the school district, the city, and the county. Those are the folks that accept that receive the money when you pay your property tax bill. We have problems there. And then you have the personal level, which is your property tax protest. So I'm going to go through all of these things. I'm going to tell you what you can do to play a role in solving any of these. At the top level, the state level, I've been working with State Representative Matt Krause, and this guy, he comes to me and says, "Hey man, what do we got to do to fix the system? Last year I protested for about 20,000 people or so. This year it'll probably be about 25,000 people. I'm doing it for free." And so that experience has really opened my eyes to all the problems that exist. And so I'm able to get into some of the more technical sides of where these problems exist. And he's been willing to write bills that will go in and clean up some of these issues. Now, getting the bill passed is another obstacle altogether. But we have to have legislators that are willing to write the bills and know how to get bills passed so that we can clean up this whole system. On the regional level, you have the appraisal district. I'll tell you, here in Tarrant County and in a lot of counties, you have you have to look at how the appraisal district is set up to start to understand who's accountable for fixing the problems. Okay. So you might think that the guy or gal across from the counter from you that's trying to tell you that your property value has gone up sky high, you might think that they're the enemy. But most of the time, that person that's at the appraisal district, the employees, the rank and file employees, are good people, and they're just getting beat up every single day, having to deal with mad people walking in because their property tax value has shot up. Well, look at who their employer is. That you've got the chief appraiser, and the chief appraiser is kind of the CEO of the appraisal district. But even above the chief appraiser, you have the board of directors. The board of directors are the folks that hire the chief appraiser, and they pass the budget. They adopt the budget at the appraisal district, and they are the ultimate say-so when it comes to how the appraisal district is run. And here in Tarrant County, the whole election system to elect the board of directors is rigged. The whole voting system is rigged. And I've come out and said plenty about it. I testified in Austin about it. And and we've made some waves in this, but we haven't passed the law yet. This solves this problem. And you can find other videos that teach you or that go into explaining how this whole system is rigged. But I'll tell you, if you want to play a role in solving this problem, contact if you know somebody at the, if you know an elected official in your city or an elected official at your school district, then talk to them and say, hey, I want to serve on the appraisal district board of directors, because this year is an election year, and it's an election that nobody will know about if I'm not making videos about it, because it doesn't get any press coverage. So it's a big, big problem, guys. The whole voting system to elect the board of directors at the appraisal district is a rigged voting system. The media doesn't cover it. And if we don't pay attention, it just flies under the radar. So what you have to do is you have to talk to your local elected officials and the city councilman, the school district board of trustees, and you say, hey, we care who you elect to the appraisal district board of directors. And if you want to make a change at your appraisal district, then you need to tell them, I am a willing candidate. Sign me up. Okay. And if you're interested in doing that, you should talk to them, but you should also reach out to me and I can help point you towards some more resources. All right. So that's how we can solve the problem at the regional level. And I want to say again, most of the problems that you have at the appraisal district are a problem because of because of an error in the property tax code itself, and it needs to be solved at a legislative level. Okay, I typically don't actually air out most of the issues that I have with the appraisal district because that's the board of directors' job. If the election process is fair, then I'll stay out of their hair for the most part, because I don't care to meddle. There's if I don't have it's their job. I'm not here to cause problems. I'm here to solve problems. So on the third level, we have the local folks. This is the entities. This is the school board, the cities. What happens is when you pay your property tax bill, they're the ones that receive the money. Okay. And I can tell you this. Let's see here. If you want to solve this whole problem once and for all, this is I can say this about any one of these points. So just about as soon as I'm about to say this, I'm gonna stick my foot in my mouth. But on number 3 here, let me go back to this slide. Number 3 is dealing with the right side of the equation. Okay. The property value is determined by the appraisal district. On the right side of the equation, the folks that determine how big your tax bill is going to be ultimately is the city, the school district, and the county. Okay. Because they're the ones that pass the budget that has to be satisfied. I'm going to go into detail and explain how that all works, but everybody wants to focus on the left side of the equation and nobody wants to focus on the right side of the equation. Okay. But I'll tell you just in a nutshell, the way that we solve this is you tell your city, I want to see a plan of how you're going to get this city out of debt. Or you tell your school district, I want to see a plan of how you're going to get this school district out of debt. If your taxing entity puts together a solid plan to get out of debt, it might take 10 years, but it'll be 10 years well worth the time. If they put in a plan on how to get out of debt, that is the single most effective thing that can happen to make sure that your property tax burden is minimized. The other thing that you can do is go to your budget meetings. Go to the budget meeting that the city or that the school district has in about October or September. Sorry, I'm still learning my months. But if you just go to the budget meeting that they establish every single year and stand up in the budget meeting and say, guys, this budget is too high. I need you to go back to work and figure out how to whittle some of this off. Or you just ask them questions and say, or you just tell them this isn't good enough, or I need you to tell me why this is so high and why you need to spend this much money. If you just stand up and say those kind of things in the budget meeting, that's the most effective thing you can do. It just helps them understand that somebody is watching, and it gives a voice to the taxpayer. Okay. All right. Now the part that directly affects you, which is the personal, which is protesting. I'm going to go deep on this and explain exactly how to protest. If you want to go all the way, if you are just now joining us, in the very first part of this video, I explained how you can quickly protest without talking with the appraisal district and do it with minimal effort. But now I'm going to go into detail. If you've got a serious problem and you want to protest on your own, then here we go. Got to get my power juice going. You know, one thing I hear the appraisal district say, or not really, usually the appraisal district, but people that want to tell us that there's not a big property tax problem, I hear them say, well, aren't you glad that your property value is going up? You should be glad about that. It's kind of like if somebody handed you a bucket full of gold coins, but just lightly covered them in poison. It's like, say, hey, here's something really good for you. But with every little piece of good news, there comes a equal piece of bad news. And people don't seem to understand that we don't care about the good news. If we have no plans of moving, then it's just bad news. And if you buy and sell in the same market, it's pretty much a wash. So where do you win in this game? I'll tell you, you win by buying multiple properties. That's where you win. Unfortunately, I could go into detail. I'm gonna try and stay focused here. I could bunny trail on all that. All right, so here's what we got. I got all these slides and all this stuff, but I feel like it would be better if I just explain it to you by going back to this slide, because this slide tells you everything you need to know. The appraisal district is in charge of determining what the property tax value is for your property. I quit sharing my screen. Sorry. The appraisal district is in charge of telling you who's in charge of property tax value. Here's what happens. When you got your value notice in April, that blue notice said whatever the market value of your property was. Well, that's what the market value of your property was back on January 1st, 2021. Okay. So they proposed a value, and now you have the opportunity to protest that value. And you have to file your intent to protest before May 17th in most counties. In Tarrant County, it's by May 17th. And so that's what the appraisal district is in charge of. Here's what happens. After you file your protest, then they're going to schedule a hearing for you. Okay. Once they schedule a hearing, between now and in your hearing time, you have to gather all your evidence of what you're going to present at the hearing and get that ready. And in the meantime, you can try to settle with the appraisal district informally. And if you don't settle with them informally, you can go to the actual formal protest and do the hearing. Okay. The appraisal district, and that hearing is with the appraisal review board. Okay. It's a slightly separate entity from the appraisal district. They settle all the protests, and they have those numbers settled by about July 25th. And then once they determine what all the property value in the entire county is going to be, they take that entire number and they send it over to the school district, to the cities, and they say, hey, here's all of the property value that you have to work with. Okay. So then after the taxing entity gets that number, then the school district or the city, they dream up how much money they want to spend. And then they say, okay, what tax rate do we have to charge these taxpayers in order to satisfy our entire the entire tax bill or the entire budget for the city? And then they come up with the tax rate. Okay. So the tax rate is actually the last part of this puzzle that is put into place. And the reason that's important is because it's shenanigans. They're out there figuring out how much money they want to spend. And then they just take it from you. And how me and my household at home, or the way we determine our budget, is we don't just spend money willy-nilly and then figure out how to take it from everybody, or then hope we go out and earn it. We look at how much money we want to spend, basically, and then figure out, instead of figuring out what we want to buy first, we look at how much money we want to spend first, and then whatever can fit inside that bucket, we spend money on, and whatever doesn't fit inside the bucket, we don't spend money on. Okay. But they just go out and charge the tax rate that it takes to satisfy the tax bill in order to satisfy their entire budget. And they already know ahead of time exactly how much they can increase their budget before it triggers a vote. Okay. And that's an important thing. All the taxing entities understand how much money they can spend without triggering a vote. And then they charge you the tax rate. And then you'll hear politicians come out and say, hey, we didn't increase the tax rate for 4 years or 3 years or however long it's been. We haven't increased the tax rate at all. So the politicians have done a good job for you. It's all the appraisal district's fault. And they pass the buck over to the appraisal district side. Okay. And what they're not telling you is this equation. But they think that we're stupid because they don't realize that me and you are physically writing checks every single month or once a year, however often your property tax payment is due, depending on if you're escrowed or not. And they expect you to believe that they've done us a favor when me and you know good and well our tax payment is going up and up and up. So if the tax value increases, then guess what? That tax rate doesn't have to be quite as big in order to equal the same amount. Okay. So they can say, I haven't increased the tax rate as much because the property values have been going up sky high. They don't have to increase it as much. In fact, in some cases, they can reduce the rate and still get the same amount of money or more. So our government came up with a nifty little word to try and give you an idea, a clear picture on when they're actually raising taxes or when they're not. And they call it the no new revenue rate. Okay. So on the city, on the local level here, when you go to those entity meetings or when you go to a school district meeting or a city meeting and you say, hey, I want you to adopt the no new revenue rate, then if they adopt that rate, then you're not going to have a tax increase. Okay. It's stupid how complicated this is. I've been doing this for 5 years. And this year I just learned so much more about the senior tax exemption. And it's just amazing how complex this is. I shouldn't have to sit here for an hour and explain all the different levels and where all the problems are. It just blows my mind. You shouldn't have to get such an education just to make sure you're getting a fair shake. You know what protesting is? Protesting is basically just going and cleaning up the appraisal district's errors. When they make an error or when they overgeneralize and forget to give your property a unique look because your property is unique and it shouldn't be taxed like everything else in the subdivision, then you have to bring that to their attention. The burden of proof shouldn't be on us. That's a state issue. That's a property tax code issue. Anyway, I can bunny trail all day long. Let me go into this a little bit. I'm going to explain just how the system is set up for just one more moment, and then I'm going to get deeper into property tax and how to protest. Okay, so you've got the appraisal district. I mentioned that they're in charge of the property value. You got the appraisal review board. They're in charge of hearing all the protests. And then you've got the tax assessor. The tax assessor, all the tax assessor does is wait until these guys have the entire equation done, and then the tax assessor just mails you the tax bill. That's basically all they do. And then when you don't pay your tax bill, they'll come collect. And that's all the tax assessor does. Okay. So you pay and the taxing entities receive the money. And that's the most important thing. The politicians can play the games where they're passing the buck. The appraisal district says you need to go talk to the politicians because they're the ones raising your rate, and all the politicians will say you need to talk to the appraisal district because they're the ones raising all the value. And the truth is, the people receiving the money are the taxing entities, and you're the one paying the money. And those are the two most important people in this whole process. All right, so I'm gonna whip through this and go into a little bit more detail about protesting. All right. So, okay. Getting a phone call. I'm going to come off of this and just explain a little bit. Hold on. I got, okay. So you've got three levels of protesting. Okay, what I mentioned earlier is just a sub level of one of those levels. Okay, so you've got an informal level, formal, and then a legal level of protesting. Okay. On the informal level, if your county, like Tarrant County, if they have an automated way for you to protest, then you should go that route first and just see what's there. Okay. So that's a type of informal protest. You can settle with the appraisal district and have a quick and easy success where they agree to a value, and then you can move on. The second level is a formal level where you have to gather evidence and then prepare for a formal hearing. Okay. And then the third level is the legal level where you have, you can go to arbitration or you can sue them. You have to go through the formal level before you can get to that legal level. Okay. So let's talk about what kind of evidence you would need if you're going to compile evidence and prepare to state your case. There are two different tactics that I use. The first tactic is a defensive tactic, and the second tactic is an offensive tactic. Okay. On the defensive side, the thing to do is to ask the appraisal district for their evidence, what evidence they're going to use against you. Okay. So in this case, this is kind of what the evidence looks like in Tarrant County. It's this grid with gray and white stripes. And on this sheet of paper, they give you the subject property here in the left column. You're not going to be able to read it. It's okay. I'm going to just read it out loud. I'm just kind of orienting you on what it is that you'll receive. But you have the subject property here, and then you have comparable sales. These are sales that they're going to use against you as evidence to try and prove that the property value should be higher than or should back up their number. Okay. Now, here's the crazy thing. It's so complicated. I'm trying to make it simple, but there's just no simple explanation for a lot of this stuff. But here's the thing. You've got to ask the appraisal district for the evidence they're going to use against you. Okay. That's the defensive tactic. And you can get the upper hand in this because you can drive by each one of these comparable sales and make sure that property actually does in fact compare to yours. Okay. So here goes the complicated thing. Oh, all right. So the appraisal district proposes a number. In this case, they propose a number. It says $475,000 in this column. That's what it says in the red circle. Okay, that's just the number that they propose. That number was established by using a mass appraisal technique. What this is basically them saying, we're going to go out and we're going to value 590,000 properties, and we're going to come up with a way to look at all the properties and basically average what the home should be in your area. And then using a cost analysis, we're going to assign a specific value to your property. Okay. The only problem with this is that's not how anybody values property in the real world. If you're going to sell your house, they don't use a mass appraisal technique. They use a sales comparison technique, which is what this attempts to do. So here's the cool thing. Kind of cool, kind of sucks. If you protest your value that they're proposing, then you might go in and say, hey, I don't think that's right. And then they might look here at their own evidence and they say, you know what? I think you're right. We don't think that number's right either. In our evidence, it says that it's $475,000. What does it say? $474,000. They proposed $475,000, but they knew from the get-go that their evidence only supported $474,000. This is an example of how the property tax code is screwed up, but it's an easy win for you. If you just ask for the evidence that they have against you, then you can go in and say, I don't think that number's right. If their evidence supports a lower value, you don't even have to argue. They'll just accept their own internal number as legitimate and move on. So then if you do some homework and you look at all the comps that they're using against you and you drive by those houses, you might find out that a couple of those houses don't compare to yours at all. And then they'll just throw those houses out and then your number could drop quite a bit. Okay. So that's the defensive side. On the offensive side, what we've got to do is start gathering information to be able to assemble counter evidence, basically. And so let's talk about that for a second. The counter evidence is going to be, there's two different kinds. One is market data And for that, you need to ask a realtor for sales comparisons, for sales that they can get off of the MLS. And you ask your realtor to get all the sales from January 1st, 2020 through March 31st of 2021. That's a date range that a realtor won't typically use in the real world. But in appraisal district land, that's perfectly acceptable. And so you ask them to get comps from that date range. And then you start to analyze the comps a little bit to calculate for differences in square footage or differences in the year built. And without getting into too much detail on it, just know that if your house is 2,000 square feet and a property that you want to use as evidence is 2,200 square feet, then what you can do is you can subtract what you might assume is $200 of value for 200 square feet of that property, because it's a larger property. So you want to try and compare apples to apples. If you've got a bigger property as evidence, then you want to decrease the value of that comparable sale so that you're comparing apples to apples. I don't know why. I just feel like I'm saying things that are kind of complicated. We get questions in the office all the time, people trying to go through this, and it's like I just feel bad for everybody as I'm going through it. I'm like, just let me do it for you. Really, that's what I want to say. God, it's just too much. Let me do it for you. It's so stupid. All right. So that's the comparable sales data. All right. On the other side of the offensive attack, you can gather condition issues. The best thing that you can get are invoices that show that work needs to be done to your property. Okay. And you want to focus on things that are not cosmetic, and it's not landscaping, and it's not fencing materials. You want to focus on things like electrical and plumbing and the roofing system, or the foundation, or those structural components. If you can get estimates showing that those things need work, then they will usually just do a dollar-to-dollar reduction off of whatever they're proposing, okay? And you might say, well, what happens if I just fixed up my house? Well, if you fix up your house after January 1st, 2021, then you can use the paid invoice showing that the house was fixed up after January 1st, because what that basically proves is that the repairs existed back on January 1st, because that's the date that they are trying to establish a value for. Okay. If you've got a repair estimate that's prior to January 1st, then you want to show them a repair estimate that shows that the work hasn't been done yet. If you show them that work was done before January 1st, then that basically proves that your home's value is higher than what than what they're proposing, because the house has been fixed up more than they were aware of, and you just made them aware that the house is now fixed up at a higher level than what they knew. Now, one thing that you don't have to worry about is you don't have to worry about them increasing the value if you protest. You can go in and protest, and there's basically no consequence that I know of, because the Texas legislator did a legislative session last session. They did a good thing, and they made it illegal for them to raise the value if you're protesting your property tax values. So that's a good thing. Okay, so you want to the other thing that you can do is you can take photos of condition issues, and if you take photos, they may look really, really horrible. And you might be presenting something that is just devastating to your property value. But the next step is the appraisal district is going to have to determine what value to assign to those repair issues. And you want to provide the guidance on how to assess the value of whatever condition issues exist. And so it's best to give them an estimate of some sort. If you leave it up to them, I'll just give you an example. Excuse me. I've had a property where I went in and protested, and all I had were photos of a foundation issue. And the foundation problem was probably a $20,000 problem. I mean, there's cracks all over the place, but there wasn't a repair estimate that went with it. So the appraisal review board just sat there and scratched their head and said, okay, well, it's obvious there's a foundation issue, but we have no idea how much to attribute to this foundation issue. So they just Googled how much is a foundation issue, and they came up with some kind of national average, and the national average was like $3,500. So hold on. So what I'm saying is, if you don't if you don't give them guidance on how much to attribute to the repair issues, then they might decide on something that is not going to go in your favor. You've got to give them the guidance of how much to attribute to this. All right. So I mentioned earlier on that if you protest that, and you have a successful protest, that it doesn't affect the amount of money that the government receives. And I want to show you exactly why that is. But here's an illustration. Here's what happens. If you've got, let's just say you have 10 homeowners and all of their property values they're all identical, and the properties are all $10 each. Okay, this is a dreamy situation here where you could own property for $10. But let's just say if you had all the property in city of Fort Worth and the entire value of all that property was 10 times 10 or 100, then you would have all 10 properties had the same amount of value. Well, if one person goes in and protests and they have a successful protest, then let's say they protest from 10 down to 5, then what happens is all the other ones just go up a smidgen, but the government receives the same amount of money. That entire pie chart is the same exact size. They just adjust whose pies are bigger and whose pies are smaller. And this is the reason why nobody really cares if you protest. It just causes the appraisal district a little bit more of a headache. There can be a time crunch that happens, but guess what? They've just got to send the tax assessor and all the taxing entities, they've just got to send them the total value of all the properties before July 25th. And guess how they can achieve that number? They can achieve the number by, well, actually, what they have to do is they have to send them the 95% of what this whole pie represents. And they can attain that number if they just settle all of the commercial properties first, because the commercial properties carry a lot more value than the residential properties. And they'll just basically weight it so that the larger dollar value properties go through the protest process first, and they can settle all those accounts so that they can certify their 95% number by the deadline. And so if you're protesting your little bitty property here, and it's just not going to do them much harm at all. In fact, I would make the case that it helps them have more accurate numbers to be able to submit. Because if you're out there protesting, then they're looking at your property individually during that protest hearing and giving it a fair shake. Well, anyway, so it's just no sweat off their back if you protest. All right. I wish I did this slideshow more often, because I kind of feel like, it's a little bit choppy, but I just thought, man, I want to get out here and tell people about protesting and answer questions and help as much as I possibly can, because the deadline to protest is the 17th. If you want me to help you, the deadline is the 14th at midnight. That's Friday. And so the deadline is upon us. If you don't know anybody if you know someone that's not protesting or they just brush it off, you should get them to protest, because the new law that came into effect, you've got a law, it's 2301E. This is a new law in the property tax code that creates a higher burden of proof for the appraisal district to meet the year after you've had a successful protest. So you should go in and protest this year so that they have to meet that burden next year. I'm going to go through and answer questions. Whenever I've done this thing live, there have been a number of times where I've sat afterwards for like 3 or 4 hours just answering questions. It's unbelievable. So if you've got a question, go ahead and mention it in the comments. And I'm going to flash these things up on the screen, and I'm going to go through as many as I possibly can. I'm actually going to work backwards, because I'm going to assume that there are a lot of questions that were asked in the beginning that I answered as time went on. All right, let's see. How do I cancel my protest request on your website? There is not a cancel option on my account. Great question, Jamie. Just send an email to protest@chandlercrouch.com. We have made a function. I don't know why you're not seeing it, but if you just log in, there's a button that allows you to cancel. But if you want to cancel, look, I'm not trying to talk anybody into using me. I'm just trying to talk you into protesting. If you want to protest on your own, I think it's great. If you just log in, there's a cancellation button. The cancellation is protested immediately. If I'd stumbled as much in this, I might want to fire me too. My gosh, I'm certainly not winning any speech debates. But anyway, go ahead and do that. Let's see. Average price to have you help me protest. The average price that I'm going to charge you, Ann, is somewhere in between 0 and free. It's going to be right in that area. So there you go. I was wondering the same thing. Signed up a couple weeks ago, haven't heard anything. Sonia, I'm actually going to send out an email letting everybody know that signed up that you're good. But if you want to log in at any time and check the status of the protest, right now it's going to say that we got you, you're on the list, everything's confirmed, and you're good to go, and you don't have anything to worry about. Go ahead and log in so you can see for yourself. I will send another email out just to reassure everybody that everything's good to go. Let's see. If I'm representing you, should you or will I attempt the informal online thing first? Anthony, the answer is yes, kind of. But whenever I'm protesting and doing the informal thing, the process that I go through is a little bit different because I'm protesting for a bunch. But I promise you, the appraisal district is motivated to try to arrive at a settlement amount because their staff would be tied up in hearings for months if I don't do that. So yeah, my process is just what I'm preaching here. I go through, I assemble evidence, and we negotiate with the appraisal district on all the accounts, and the ones where it's obvious that there's really no better evidence that we're going to be able to find, and they have a number that we think is a fair number, then we go ahead and agree to that, and we'll do the informal settlement. And then for the ones that we know that there's stronger evidence for, but they're just not willing to come down to our number, then we escalate it to a formal protest. And what I do is exactly what I mentioned to you guys. I use the affidavit of evidence, and I assemble. I go all the way with the evidence. This year, I'm revamping my software, and it's just crazy. What I do is I analyze their comps. I figure out where the holes are. Then I run comps. I figure out what evidence I have that's going to outweigh their evidence. And if there's a compelling case, then we go ahead with that formal protest and we force a hearing on it. And then I believe this year, we're going to be able to sign top line agreements so that if you don't like the results, then trust me, if you don't like the results, I probably don't like the results. But sometimes the evidence just doesn't support a lower reduction, or sometimes it does, and they just rule the way we don't want them to rule. And I will leave a protest hearing just red hot mad because it's unfair sometimes. And so if that's the case, then I believe this year we're going to be able to preserve your right to take it to that next level if you want, and go to arbitration. Let's see here. I see somebody throwing some mud on somebody. Let's see here. A couple years ago, let's read this one. Okay. Lily says, a couple years ago, someone from the Tarrant Appraisal District came and talked to our neighborhood association. He told me that the taxing entities tell him how much money they want. The rate has already been set, so they take the budget and divide it by the rate and decide how much to value a property. So it's the property value that comes last in the equation, not the rate. Well, Lily, if you just look at the calendar on when those budget meetings are held and when the appraisal district has to arrive at a certification, then you'll see that the certification date is usually about July 25th. And then the budget hearings are scheduled in August or September. And if you feel like your entity might schedule a budget hearing before that, then that might be an exception to it. But I would say that for every major city and county, the county, the cities, major cities, and major school districts, that it happens just like I said. So I'm not saying there's not an exception out there. There's all sorts of wacky stuff that's going on. How much of our property tax goes to the Texas Land Commission? That's a great question. I have no idea on that, but I'll show you something here. I'll show you how how you can figure out how much your property tax goes to. Let's see. I'll go to tad.org. I'll show you a property that I do not own anymore. So if you go to tad.org and you plug in 109 your address, I'm going to just give you an example here. Okay, here is a property that you can see. These are all the entities that receive money when you pay your tax bill. And if you scroll down a little bit, I'll show you how you can kind of verify that. There's a link right here. It's going to be hard to see anything, but if you just log into the tad.org and you find your account, then you'll be able to find it. You click that link, and then you go here. What you'll find is right here, you can find an e-statement. And on that e-statement, you can see exactly how much property tax someone's paying. And you can see exactly who's receiving that. And you can do that on any property you want. So on this property is City of Fort Worth, Tarrant County, the Tarrant County Hospital and Tarrant County College. School district isn't on this one because this property straddles the boundary line, and the Northwest ISD school district tax is collected by Denton County. So it's just the way they funnel that. But the property taxes for this property are significantly more than that. The largest amount that's being collected by the ISD isn't shown on here, but usually it is. So I guess that's the only exception where they're not going to show everybody that's receiving the money, is if there's another county actually facilitating the payment on that. Okay. So great question. Let's see here. The school district taxes are for the kids. If you disagree with your attack, then you're backers. I don't know. So John, congratulations. I just highlighted your comment here. So you just made somebody mad. I don't know. I'm not slowing down long enough to really process that. But there are a lot of people that say, hey, my kids aren't in the public school system. I homeschool my kids. I'm a senior citizen. I don't even have kids. Why am I paying for school taxes? Well, it just kind of goes with the way that our school system is set up. In order for our government to be able to offer an education to everybody, then it's going to take more than just everybody paying for the services that your child has. And so, that goes above my head. But there are certainly plenty of arguments out there about who should pay and why you should pay and who should pay more and who should pay less. And I think that all those arguments are worthy arguments to have at the legislative level to try and make this a more fair system. And certainly people voicing their opinion, and not just voicing their opinion, being noisy about it, but actually petitioning your local or your state legislator. That's who you need to go to and tell them what you think. Assemble a meeting, get everybody together, call me up. I'm happy to talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere, usually, unless I've got a deadline upon me. Let's see. Please explain exemptions, homestead and 65, and what benefit the 65 gives you. All right. Sounds good, Colin. I tell you what, this is a great question. I have not done this in a video ever. So I'm going to explain a little bit about the over 65 exemption. The homestead one is easy, but I'll explain the over 65 exemption. Then I'll just keep going through here. I see a lot more questions, but here we go. So if you go to Google and you just search for over 65 exemption Tarrant County tax rate, then you will find this nifty little chart. And this chart is what you're going to need to see in order to understand this stuff. Yes, it takes an entire chart to be able to understand this. And so here's what we've got. We've got each city has a tax rate, okay? And then oh man, I want to see a better chart. Let's see here. Exemptions. Let me find a better chart. Give me a second. Rates. That's probably this one, maybe. There's one that says which ones are meant. Yeah, this is the one I want. One that looks even more complicated because that one wasn't complex enough. Okay. So on this chart, what you'll see is on the left column, you'll see every single entity listed. And on the first page, you've got the cities and the towns. And then you've got these special entities down here, the water district and the hospital and the college and that sort of thing. Then you go to page 2, you'll see all the school districts. Okay. So let's start with page 2, because you'll see that on these column headings, there's this little thing right here. It says state mandated is in the top of the column heading. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So it says state mandated right up top here. So the state mandates that the school district give certain exemptions for your homestead, for your over 65, and for your disabled person. Okay. And so what they do is they actually subtract an additional $25,000 for the homestead. They'll subtract an additional $10,000 for over 65 or $10,000 for the disability exemption. Okay. And so I want to show you where you can see that. If you go here to the e-statement area, then you'll see that this exemption amount, it does not show on the actual website. These numbers right here do not reflect anything regarding the exemption. You have to go here to see this. And then you can see that there's something called the taxable value, okay? So on top of the market value and the appraised value, then you have the taxable value. And for somebody that's not in deep on this, this is where I start feeling bad, because it's like none of these words make sense. It's just too many words. They just pick words. They don't even reflect the definitions that they represent. But taxable value kind of does, actually. This one's a step in the right direction, but they don't advertise this anywhere. So except for on your bill. So you've got your appraised value, and then they subtract a certain amount for the exemption here, and then that gives you the taxable value. If you had, if this was a tax bill that showed the ISD, then it would show $25,000 being subtracted for the homestead exemption. Okay, so those are state mandated. Those are the same across the board, no matter which school district you go to. Now, here's the interesting thing. The cities don't have anything mandated like that. There are restrictions on what the city can offer, but they're not forced into it. So if you scroll over, you can see that the state mandated 3 columns are completely blank, but then next to it are local option columns. And so the city has, let's go down here to some juicy ones. The city of Grapevine has, they'll subtract 20% for the homestead in the city of Grapevine. Okay. Now, well, and they'll do 75,000 for the over 65 exemption. Now check this out. You may have heard of another benefit that you get through the over 65 exemption. And that benefit is one of the most attractive components of our property tax code. And that is a ceiling to your property taxes. Once you hit 65, then you should have a ceiling on your property taxes for the school district. But I'm going to just scroll over here to this section, and look, this column right here says ceiling. And you can see some cities have a ceiling and some do not. So before you pack up and get ready to move, you might want to check out this chart if you're getting near 65 and make sure you're moving to a city that's going to have a ceiling on it. Okay. So that you're not in a situation where your city taxes can keep increasing, because it's just madness. So you can see there are some cities, I don't want to dog the cities because I'm friends with a lot of the mayors here. But some cities have a over 65 ceiling and some don't. And then you can see that some cities offer a far better exemption amount for the homestead or for the over 65 exemption than others. South Lake actually has, Grapevine has some pretty good exemptions. They don't have the ceiling listed here. They're kind of an anomaly. City of South Lake has some pretty good property tax breaks, but that kind of gives you the overview. I know that just really brushes the surface, but just having this chart shows you how you can start to decode some of this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the comment section because I know somebody's probably wondering where they can get their hands on that. Okay. I don't know if that comment is going to go to YouTube and my personal page and my business page, but if you just search around, in fact, what I'll do here is I'll post that on that same page on my blog here in just a moment. Okay. Ooh, here's a good question. And this is a real estate question too. So I want to talk about this one. Buddy says, you've handled our property tax protests in the past. We plan to move, but haven't picked a home yet. Should we sell our home before buying our new home first? We owe less than $100,000 on our home. Buddy, that is a great question. It just kind of depends on why you are selling and what your abilities are. Okay. I would say my camera's not in focus. There it goes. I would say that for ease of lifestyle, it would be much better to buy the next property before you sell. However, there's a little bit more financial risk when you do that, because you could be in a position where you owe multiple house payments. And even though your house is almost paid off, you still have the same exact mortgage amount that you had whenever you first started, whenever you got that home refinance. So, until your last dollar is paid off, they can always foreclose on you, and you're still going to owe property taxes. So, for financial, for a smart financial decision, the best thing to do right now is to just do your best to time it. We actually have a solution here in our company that we're not able to offer everybody because it's pretty labor intensive. But if you are in a position where you're willing to buy a house in as is condition, and you can be a really good buyer where you can be really flexible on your timeline, then what we can do is we can target, and if you know exactly what you're looking for, we can target a specific area and call through the people that we know and say, hey, we've got somebody interested in buying a house in your area, and try and identify a home that hasn't been listed yet. Because there are so many people right now that don't want to list their house on the market because they think, hey, if I list my home on the market, the worst thing that can happen is somebody swoops in and they buy the house and then I'm going to be homeless. And you're exactly right. The worst thing you can do is be homeless, but we have an avenue where we can help you bridge that gap to ensure that you're going to not be without a house. And so the best thing to do is just to try and time it as best you can. And if you're on the seller side of the equation and you're in that boat where you're thinking, hey, I don't want to put my house on the market because somebody's going to want to come in and buy it immediately. Well, then what we're able to do is connect you with someone like Buddy and say, hey, let's put your house on the market through our soft coming soon program through a sister company. By the way, no other real estate company that I know of has the ability to do this because of some rules of the National Association of Realtors. But we've got a third-party company that will come in and help do a coming soon program that's extended, where we can try to negotiate a very advantageous timing terms for you so that you can have your house under contract while you go out and find the next one. And so it's the way to be able to handle this buffer situation. I also have a couple companies that are willing to front you the cash to be able to help you buy the new one without selling your old one. I've got all sorts of things. I mean, there are some real problems in our real estate market because values are going up and up and up like crazy. We've got a huge supply issue going on, and we've got some really innovative techniques to be able to handle that. So thanks for asking the question, buddy. Just shoot us an email. The best thing to do right now, I'm not going to give out any other contact information on this, except for protest@chandlercrouch.com. But I promise you, if you send an email to protest@chandlercrouch.com, then we'll help you out and get you some information, see if you're eligible for that program. It's slick. It's the way I bought a house. So let's see here. I'm glad there's no income. I'm glad there's no income tax, but I thought of renters not adding anything to the state budget does bother me. Well, Michael, here's the thing. I see what you're saying, but the truth is that the renters are having to pay out the nose too, because what happens is there's no property tax exemption if you're not living in the home as your primary residence. So the people with the homestead exemptions, they're capped at 20% growth per year, which is way too much. But the people that are not living in the house as their primary residence, there's no cap on them. So the landlords generally just pass that along to the renters. And so the renters are having to pay sky high rent. And even though the landlord may be the one cutting the check, it's passed along to the renters. So it really benefits everybody to try and fix this property tax issue. That's one issue I was working with Representative Matt Krause on. He wrote a bill that would cap all single family residential properties. I don't think that one's going to get passed, but it should next time. All right. Let's see. Here's a good one. I had a fence put up, and because of the neighbors' trees, I lost 2 feet along the back of my property. Is there anything I should put about that? Because of the neighbor's tree, I lost 2 feet along the back of my property. Well, Catherine, this is where the system is kind of unfair. When me and you know that something has affected your property value, sometimes the appraisal district doesn't see it as legitimate. For instance, this is not really related to your subject directly, but indirectly it is. I have seen situations where people have soiled flooring. It is disgusting, and the walls are just not good at all. And it might only take $5,000 to fix the paint job. But whenever you go to sell a house like that in that condition, that $5,000 paint job could translate into $20,000 of actual sales price. And so that doesn't get translated into your property tax appraisal because of how the appraisal district typically views that evidence, those condition issues. I would say, Catherine, for you, that if the property boundary has not changed, for instance, like when you get a survey, if the survey lines haven't changed, if it hasn't actually affected the land size that you own, even though you may not have access to it anymore, if you still own that property, then chances are your taxes will not change at all. And it's probably, if it's just 2 feet, it says along the back of my property. If it's actually 2 square feet, then that's probably not a big deal. But if it's like 2 feet across the entire length of the property, and that property line is like, 200 feet long, now you're dealing with 2 feet times 200, then that might be a significant issue. So it just kind of depends. In situations like this, I just hate to hear about it because I know there's not really any good resolution for the neighbors. You just kind of have to bite the bullet. And even though you don't have access to the property, you're still having to pay property taxes on it. It's just hopefully a friendly conversation with the neighbor to say, something about it and get that resolved. But the tax man ain't going to care all that much. All right, Victor, what you got, man? So my parents own 2 homes. One they have homesteaded. The other my brother lives in, but it's almost double. And I was wondering what we could do about that. They put it in under his name. All right. So here's the thing, Victor. If I see this a lot when a parent wants to buy a property for their child, then the issue is that the parent will typically buy the property in the parent's name. And so then the child doesn't have the benefit of getting the homestead exemption or any other exemption for that matter. And so the thing to do is it kind of depends on what your folks' tax situation is and what there are other things that go into play. But one potential avenue that you could take is your parents could be the lender for your brother, and your brother could buy the house with 0% down and pay payments to your parents, just like your parents are the bank. And then if your brother is the official owner of the property, then your brother would have the ability to file for a homestead exemption or disability or any other kind of exemption for that matter. And so then you'd be able to get that benefit that way. So Victor, that's what I would recommend. If you need help with that, just shoot an email over to my office. We can't do it because we're not attorneys, but I can get you connected with the right path. But you might want to run that idea past your parents. There are certain tax breaks that you get for owning property versus being the lender on a property. But as far as I'm concerned, you lose a little bit of control because your parents wouldn't be able to sell that property because they don't own it anymore. But if they don't have any interest in, taking back ownership of it anytime soon, and they're happy with the monthly payment that your brother's giving them, then that might be a great solution that would help everybody out from a tax perspective. There you go. Just email me at protest@chandlercrouch.com. Be happy to take a look at it. Okay. So Ruben says, all I have are the disclosure statement from when I refinanced last year. Will that suffice? Yes. And Ruben, I'm going to answer your question and a couple other questions along with this. If you refinanced or purchased a property last year, then I would say if you purchased a property, then your settlement statement is sufficient. If you refinanced, I would say that the settlement statement may not be sufficient because what we're actually going to be looking for if you refinance, we're actually going to be looking at the appraised value that the appraiser gave whenever it got refinanced. Okay. So what we would want in that situation is all the pages to the appraisal. That would be the best evidence. They want all the pages. I've actually sent an appraisal. I've actually been in a protest hearing, submitted a full appraisal, and the appraisal review board did not give me full credit for that appraisal. I was so mad. I left there just ready to punch somebody in the face. It was horrible. But that's just part of the deal. And, it's just like a jury trial. The jury can decide whatever they think is fair. And, and despite the best arguments in the world, you never know. Sometimes it's just a wild card situation. But so there you go. Now, Ruben, here's the flip side of this. If you purchased a property, even if it was appraised at much lower than what you purchased it for, the purchase price is the dominant number in that situation. Okay. I've noticed that everyone I know that has tried to protest that had their value stay the same in 2020 were given the message that they were not eligible for a reduction. Do you know why? Yes, I do. I'm going to show you. I think I do. In all probability, I know. But remember I said that whenever they propose a value, it's the value that they show on the appraisal district website. It's this market value. By the way, the market value is the only value that you're able to protest because that's their opinion of the value. Okay. So in this case, the opinion is $197,000. Okay. Which is crazy. That's 2021. Okay. Whatever. Just moving on here. I know this property, so I was thinking about it. So that's their opinion of the value of the property. But when you go into protest, they might have evidence and it'll look like this. It'll be, they'll have all the data that they show you for their protest, and they'll say, hey, we think, I can't zoom in anymore. Oh, I don't know what I just did. I'm about to fry the thing. But they're going to have their actual evidence might say something totally different than what they propose. So this happens fairly frequently when somebody they get their blue value notice and they say, here's what they're proposing as the value, but then the actual evidence in the system is much higher than that, then you're not going to get a reduction unless you have repair issues that make up that gap. Okay. And so this year, I promise you, there will be a ton of people where I have to send an email and say, hey, there was no evidence for a reduction. No matter what we had, it just wasn't enough. They have plenty of evidence in their system that substantiated a value much higher than they're even proposing. And I'll send that email out to a bunch of people, and you might see somebody that has something negative to say online, but you have to realize, like, I have no control over that. And if you see that, please defend me, because I can't get every comment, but that's what happens. I mean, I'm dealing with the madness in the front line so that you don't have to. But April, in this situation, what I would recommend is go ahead and file a protest anyway, and use the affidavit of evidence, like I mentioned in the first 10 minutes of this video. That's the way to just still have a protest hearing and get the best evidence you can and give it a shot. You never know. But the thing you might want to do first is look and see what evidence they have against you in that situation. Do rental properties get assessed differently? All right. Magdanilla. There you go. So Mr. or Ms. I said it right. Oh, whatever. So sorry. Forgive me. Do rental properties get assessed differently? Yes and no. Okay. Here's a significant issue that has hit my radar, and this is something that the legislators have to pay attention to. Single-family residential properties are valued through a sales comparison technique. Okay, all that means is they're looking at other houses that have sold recently that are similar to yours, and they're comparing them to your property. And they say, if these other houses that are similar to yours sold at this level, then we can reasonably expect if your house was brought on the market, it would sell at about that level too. Now, here's the thing. There's something else instead of a sales comparison approach. There's something called an income approach, where they're looking at income produced by a property, and they have a capitalization rate they use as a multiplier to basically determine the overall value of a property. So if your property is generating $80,000 of revenue per year, then they subtract some numbers and multiply some numbers, and they say, okay, because of this multiplier, we think your property is worth $800,000 or whatever they say. And so here's the thing. If they're using an income approach, when your property generates more income, then your ability to pay your property taxes goes up as well. It's almost like an income tax. Okay. So for the sales comparison approach, for the single family residential people, the folks that own regular houses, we don't have that same luxury. When our property value goes up, our income might be staying the same. And so our ability to pay that doesn't increase. Okay. So the way to know whether your property is being valued by income versus by sales comparison is to ask for the evidence they're going to use against you in the hearing. Okay. typically they're not going to use the income approach until the property gets to be, probably a fourplex or greater. I'm not sure though. I know for duplex on down, it's usually sales comparison approach. They're looking at other property sales, but you can look at the income approach. And I would say, even if you have a duplex, if you go in with your income for your profit and loss statement and show your rent rolls and show, hey, this is the income this property's been generating, and it's significantly less than what the sales comparison approach would say, then you might use that as evidence. So kind of a long answer, but there are some laws that need to be passed that I think would help if we had an exemption for all single family residential properties just because of that issue. All right, Julie Mack, thank you for coming. First time. Glad to have you. This is the only time I'm doing a webinar this year on this stuff. So just rambling my way through it. Anthony, let's see what you got to say. Thanks for all you do. You're already protesting for me. Will you attempt an online dispute offer on Tad's website, or should we please? I would rather you not do that, because most people, when they do that, they accidentally file a protest. If you accidentally file a protest, then it starts to get the records messed up. But you're more than welcome to check it out. If you go do the online, if you look at the online thing, you say, I want to do this, rather than hire me, then that's fine. Just fire me. Hire me or fire me. That's all I ask. I hate it when somebody goes on and they see that they can get a reduction, and it might not even be a bad reduction at all. And then they say, I'm just going to go hire Chandler and see if he can do better. Well, I have no idea what you were offered. So I have no idea what number to beat. And sometimes I can get a much bigger reduction than a homeowner, and sometimes I don't. And I'm going to use this as a chance to confront my enemies out there. There are other people out there that will say Chandler doesn't get as much of a reduction as other tax consultants. Well, there are a couple huge reasons why. Their graphs are missing some data, and I don't care. I just don't care. I'm happy for other tax consultants to get business and charge out the nose. I don't care. What they're doing is a valuable service. And so I don't have a problem with people making money. Quite frankly, maybe I should charge. I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I'm not going to charge anything. It's free. But think about this. The people that get affected the most by this property tax issue are the folks that have the lowest property value, and the folks at the lowest at the bottom of the scale, and the folks that have the highest property value. And the reason why is because there's lack of data, there's lack of evidence, lack of comps. All the people in the center, the people that live in a neighborhood where there's a sea of houses and they're all about the same size. Guess what? There's a lot of data there for the appraisal district to use. So the appraisal district is not going to be off by near as much if you live in that nice middle class, even upper middle class area of property value. But if you live in the lower class, what happens is you're in the low property value areas have a high percentage of rentals. So there aren't as many sales to compare. And then you have other investors that come in and build brand new houses. So then you have these sky high sales that happen. So in the upper echelon, you have these massive properties, $2-3 million, that they just don't sell very often. And when they do sell, sometimes they're not recorded on the MLS. And so there's lack of property data. Guess which population of people don't have the money to go out there and fight their property taxes? It's the lower side. So guess who's there to help them? Me. All right. Guess who doesn't make any money on those guys? All the people that charge money. I don't make money already. I'm happy to help the people on the lower echelon. Okay. Somebody needs to help them. For some reason, there are certain minority communities that just don't protest as much. I don't know why. It's just a fact of nature. I have no clue why. Maybe it's not nature. Maybe it's something else. I have no idea why. All I know is I'm there to help. I want to do everything I can. And I've actually talked to multiple property tax agents that send people to me when they can't get a reduction. And the reason why is because they're good people. These property tax consultants will say, hey, look, I'm not going to charge you but I'm not going to take your business either because I know I can't get you a reduction. Go to the guy that's doing it for free. Let him take a crack at it if you want. And so I just accept anybody and everybody. I'm here to help. Okay. But that's the reason why I'm not here trying to inflate my scoreboard to show people that I'm out there, getting the biggest reductions. Although I know which companies I've patterned myself after, and you can go look at all sorts of stats. And if you look at certain stats and other stats, and you can look at how effective I am when you look at different cross sections of properties, and I am happy with my effectiveness, and I'm only getting better. But I promise, I don't want to disparage the other property tax consultants out there. I just want to say that. So I'm not going to talk trash about them. All I'm going to say is I'm proud of my results. So, and I'm happy to help the people that can't afford it. By the way, I was helping a guy that owned a $2 million property just the other day. I've seen somebody online say, Chandler just targets the high-end property values. Like, dude, I'm not making anything. All that does is increase my liability. That doesn't, the people that actually can afford to sue me, now I'm taking on theirs. I'll do theirs too. I don't care. I feel bad. I make no judgment about somebody's personal value based on their income or their assets. Everybody is equally valuable. Now, I might be able to make more money if I was to do business with them, but doing it for free, I'm not making any money. So come on, man. Anyway, that's something only I care about, I think. If you're already protesting for it, if I'm already protesting for it, I think I've already answered this question, actually. No, you don't have to. There's no requirement to send me anything else. You can, if you want to send me more evidence, then you can upload photos or repair estimates and that sort of thing, but there is no requirement. Oh, here's a good one. I didn't know I had to last year, and they had my square footage wrong and denied my appeal, yet had me submit my appraisal information and told me to do it next year. Okay, gosh, Hazel, that's a bummer. I don't know what to think on that one. I think that there's more information I'd need in order to be able to figure out like what the deal is on that. But if you just email, hey, Jennifer, what's their email? Is it res@tad.org? Okay, if you're in Tarrant County and you just email res@tad.org, that's a great way to get straight to a human being that can look at your appraisal and that sort of thing and give you some feedback on that. But you did the right thing. If you have an issue with your square footage and you think that they're valuing you based on a wrong square footage, you have to get them some official documentation to use as evidence, or else they can't give you an adjustment on your square footage. You can request for them to come out to your property and measure. Believe it or not, they might actually do it if it's a big enough problem. Don't hold your breath for it, but it's possible. And so, yeah, you can do that. You did the right thing. Maybe it has to do with when your appraisal was dated. I don't know, Hazel, but you did the right thing. I would say for most everybody, by the way, if you look at your appraisal district page, you might see that there is a small discrepancy in the square footage based on like what you bought it for, what the builder said your square footage was, and versus what the appraisal district is saying. And the reason why is just a lot of times it's a difference in how they measure. The appraisal district might measure from the center of a wall, whereas an appraiser might measure the outside. I don't know. But 100, 200 square feet is generally not a big enough discrepancy to pay for an appraisal to get it corrected. But if you've got a 1,200 square foot home, then 200 square feet is massive. So maybe I don't know. If you have questions on your specific property, just email us and I'll be happy to take a look and get my team to sick them. Protest@chandlercrouch.com. All right. I'm going to scroll right back down to the bottom, answer any new questions that have come in, and then I'm going to get off of this thing so we can all get back to work. Susie, I love you too. Oh, you love all the, I thought you were saying you love me. You love the info. You just want me for my info. I love you, Susie. Just kidding. No, I'm not kidding about loving you. I do love you, but it's okay that you just love me for my info. You can use me for the info. It's okay. Is there a reduction percentage that the appraisal district is likely to accept? For instance, if they appraise my property at $200,000, are they likely to accept a reduction offer from me of 10%? Okay. Loaded question. What you need to do is get the evidence that they're going to use against you. I've shown this a number of times. I'll go ahead and show it again real quick. Their evidence is going to look kind of like this. It's like a grid, okay? And it has comps on it. And here's the evidence of what they actually think your property is worth is, it's shown right here in this bottom left corner, okay? It's hard for me to, I did that. All right, it's the bottom left corner number. That's the number that they are going to stand behind in their protest. There is no actual percentage that they have in concrete terms of what they're willing to accept below that. I got confirmation from the guy that helped write the formula for the little automated protest thing that because of us, they changed their algorithm to randomize the amount that they'll accept. So, and that guy doesn't lie. So, so there is no exact number, but I would say between 95 and 99% of that indicated value number is what you can usually get accepted on the automated protest. If you're doing a informal or a formal protest, that whole thing is out the window. There is no like rule of thumb. Dude, check out Josh Matt. It's actually Jack. He goes by Jack. One of our expert realtors out there helping point people in the right direction. He is the man. Jeff Moody says, if I have a home on 5 acres, can I still apply for an ag exemption? I know that the 5 acres qualifies for ag with bees, but does my house cancel that? Honestly, Jeff, I have no idea. I'd have to look at it specifically, but I have not focused a whole lot on the agricultural exemption. So I would say I would search for another property tax consultant. There are a couple that I'll give you the names of 4. So I'm just giving them equal love. There's a guy named Bobby Ola that you can Google for that. There's a guy named Steve Dunson. There's a lady named Melissa Gallagher, and there's a lady named Tiffany Hamill. They are all of them exceptional. I have not seen any of them talk trash about me, so I will continue loving them. The others, I don't blame anybody. If I was making a living, I probably wouldn't like me either. Making a living doing this, I wouldn't like me either. Anyway, all right. But those people, there are some incredibly generous, kind property tax consultants out there that are like have been tremendously helpful, and because they are wired the same way, they want to see people get relief and get help. And so I am generally a pro property tax consultant. They're good people. So just thought I'd throw that out there. It involves sales. So Shirley's probably coming on here, replying to somebody, and she's exactly right. Whenever I show this screen right here, there are 2 different grids that look just like this. One is for the sales comparison, and the other is for the market value, and the other one's for equity. And I didn't get into that today because I just felt like I was kind of given too much info as it is, because it's just a lot of inside baseball stuff. All right. Buddy says, thank you. I'll contact your company. We had talked to Mr. Cargill in the past. Mr. Cargill is another one of our exceptional realtors. He is one of the best that we have. He's like at the top of the echelon as well. He's awesome, and you can't go wrong. By the way, I stand behind everything our realtors do, because they wouldn't be working for me if I didn't, because and we're all independent contractors. So I was like, working for me is kind of, I wouldn't allow them to represent me if I wasn't willing to stand behind them, because that's the time I say bye, because I'm like, hey, I wouldn't trust you with my family, so you're out. But the ones we have are just awesome. So hook it up with Brian and Jack. Anybody else? Will I lose my homestead exemption if I use my house for a home-based business? Ralph, typically not, as long as you're not hanging a sign out front and have a bunch of cars out front. I can't really speak specifically for your situation without knowing more details, but I would just say probably not. If you use your home as your primary residence, then that's the thing that they're looking for. The evidence that you have to give is your driver's license. That has to match the house, and that will do it. All right, let's look here. Shirley, can I still use the formula of protest that you shared a few years ago? Shirley, that formula now has been revised to 95 to 99% of the lower of the 2 indicated values. And that's what I was just talking about a second ago, about how they randomized it now. And let's see, you know my name. So you can protest and lower your taxes even after the homestead exemption discount. Yes. Yes, kind of. People that want to be very technical about this will say you can protest to lower your property tax value, maybe not your taxes. Okay. Because let's say if your homestead exemption is capping you out down here and they think your home is worth this, you can protest this because that's what they think your home is worth. And you can get it down significantly, but if it doesn't get down to this, it's not lowering your taxes. You have to give it down all the way to that level, and then they'll both go down, and then it will decrease your taxes. So there you go. Let's see what Kim's saying. Kim, good to have you comment on here. Do you see an issue with TAD and other appraisal districts putting more and more value in the land, so it's harder to justify reductions because they don't count your improvement as the biggest part of your appraisal? Kim, great question. Yeah, I've got a little bit of a problem with this, but I also understand why they do it. I think it's irrational and I wish they didn't do it, but I don't have a great solution on how they could approach this otherwise. So Kim is noticing that on her property value that they have attributed the total value to her land more than her market value. So I'll show you on this property. So, and people get really bent out of shape about this because it looks scary, but the truth is, this is what they think your home is worth. This is what you pay taxes on over here. And then they just take this number right here and they try and say, okay, well, 152,000 of that main number is improvement, meaning the house. 45,000 of it is the land. And so it only really affects you if there's a difference in the square footage of your property versus another property. Okay. Now, a property they're comparing it to. Now, if the comparable sale is bigger, then you're not going to like it as much because the amount that they're going to adjust for that 200 square foot difference is not going to be that much. However, if their property is smaller, then they're going to have to adjust up. Then it's going to work in your favor. So it may be flawed, but it's flawed in a fair way in so much as it's fair because everybody gets mistreated the same. So for that, I would say it's okay. I'm not happy with it, but it's not something I'm going to go crazy over. I would just say you should focus all your effort in this market value number right here, because this is the number that you can protest. And when I'm looking at other properties that have sold, that's the number I'm going to focus on as well. And by the way, the price per square foot is not like that's not, it's not price per square foot of the whole thing. So let's just say this is $197,000 and this property is 1,443 square feet. So if you take it and you do 197, whoopsie daisies, 197 divided by 1,443 equals, that's $136 a square foot. Well, guess what? If your house has a different square footage than the comparable sale, they're not going to use $136 square foot adjustment. What they're going to do is they're going to try and figure out how much of that 136 is for just the structure, because you could have 10 acres of land. And if they did that kind of equation and did a price per square foot, including all of the land, it wouldn't really be an apples to apples comparison. It would be like, it would be lopsided. Same thing if you had a swimming pool. If they're trying to separate the structure from the land so that they can come up with an adjustment amount just for the square footage of the structure itself. And what will happen is you'll see that land value stay the same for year after year after year. And then all of a sudden one year that it jumps up quite a bit. And the reason is because they don't actually revalue the land every year. Like, look at this. On this house, it's been $45,000 every single year. And then, but this improvement value has been going up. Well, how are you supposed to know how much is attributed to the land and how much is to the structure? Because you can't sell a lot like this in that subdivision, and you can't find a comparable sale because there are no undeveloped lots left. And that's how you would determine the value. Just like you can't take the structure and remove it from the property and go sell the structure to figure out the value of the structure. You can't do that. So it's kind of disingenuous, but they'll every 3 years or so, they'll come back and revalue the land, and then they'll make up for lost time and adjust those proportions. But you're protesting the entire market value of the property. And I would say I wouldn't focus on this stuff unless you have super compelling evidence, like a nearby sale or two that show that the price per acre is a lot lower than what they're valuing. So great question, Kim. Thank you. All right. Average guy says, I have read that your primary home where you live should be exempt from tax. Any thoughts? I think that anybody that has that kind of argument, I like the argument. I like to hear the debate, but the question is okay, so where's the missing tax revenue going to come from? If we're not paying it on our primary residence, then that means that all the other property tax value is going to increase. Or we've got to generate more tax revenue from some other avenue. If we did a consumption tax, then two of the biggest sectors that you have the ability to tax that would actually make up for property tax would be like food, like Whole Foods. Right now, there's no tax on Whole Foods, or it would be like oil and gas stuff. And, you know, I'm not real excited about, I don't know. I'm not excited about any other form of taxation. I would have to go and look at some of those other taxing models that some of the other states use in order to latch onto it. But the question is, I like the idea of, yes, no, I don't want no property tax on my personal homestead. I think that is like, that should be an American right to be able to own your home. If you've paid it off, then the government shouldn't be able to tax you out of your home. The second and the Second and the 14th Amendment or so talk about the life, liberty, and property, and the Fifth Amendment and 14th, and it talks about the government should have due process to protect you for life, liberty, and property. And whenever they tax you out of your home, it just feels like they're kind of stepping across that line. But what do I know? I like seeing people argue about it. But for me, myself, and we're going to just focus on the property tax system that we have and make it better. And I think there are some adjustments that could be made that would improve it drastically. But I also would be in favor of a bigger overhaul. Now, I have said publicly in a video that got about 5,000 views recently that I've got a 5-year plan to end this whole thing, which is true. And I kind of had to put a pause on that while I'm protesting. But as soon as I get on protesting, I'm going to pick back up. The companies that support what we're doing, I'm going to promote those companies and show you guys who is supporting us and who is in the trenches, in the battle, trying to help fix this property tax system. And I'm gonna promote them, and they're gonna supplement what we're doing here so that you don't have to pay for it. And I'm going to take that revenue and I'm going to expand into other counties. And within 5 years, I should be able to expand all across the entire state of Texas, as long as my appetite for it remains strong, which doesn't look like it's going to decrease anytime soon. But after I expand into all counties across Texas, then I believe that this debate will be further along, and I'll be happy to jump in there and debate myself on and analyze some of these other tax plans to have a good solution that we can get passed. And I believe we can get the numbers to get whatever passed, because we won't, right? Something's going to happen. This can't continue. It's a big problem, and our legislators are not going to pay attention to it unless we make them aware or help them understand this is our number one problem, our number one focus. All right, let's see here. Okay. Protest@chandlercrouch.com. Sue is saying, I have no idea why you sent this message. I don't know how to contact you or what you want. It is very difficult trying to figure out why there is even no way to contact you. Protest@chandlercrouch.com. Discontinue sending me your unneeded information. I will block you. I don't know. I don't know what I've sent Sue, but I apologize, Sue. I promise you, I got enough people to contact. I'm not trying to send anybody anything they don't want. So that's the reason why I send a lot. But Sue, trust me, like, it almost looks like it might be a spam message on something might have happened. I don't know. I have no idea, Sue. But I'm not trying to send anybody anything they don't want. All right. Diane says, when or how do we hear you are representing us? If you've signed up on my website, then it's there. So you can log in at any time and check the status of it. And if you have any questions about it whatsoever, send me an email, protest@chandlercrouch.com. Protest@chandlercrouch.com. All right. Whoo. There we go. All right, y'all. Hey, I'm going to fix the system. We're going to fix this thing. And in the meantime, I'm going to help as many people as I can. And I just have to say thank you so much to our clients that have chosen us to help you buy or sell a house. Our expert team of realtors if you go look at our reviews, they're off the charts. And that's because we have the best real estate team on earth. They fund all of this. And it's almost like, if we were running a nonprofit, I'd be doing the same exact thing, except they'd be begging you for money or raising money through a foundation or something. I don't do that. Just because the primary function of what we're doing here is helping people buy and sell houses. And we do it on a very high level. You can count on us, and you can read the reviews. You don't have to take my word for it. When it's time for you to buy or sell a house, please call us. It helps. You will be joining in the partnership to help make a difference in our local community, to help people with issues that affect you and me and our neighbors. And we turn around and leverage what you do, and leverage your choice to use our team of expert realtors to help a whole lot of people. And I will keep doing that as long as I possibly can, per my question above. Josh, hold on. Joshua's got a question before I wrap up. Joshua, I'm looking for your comment and I'm not seeing it, but I tell you what, I'm going to log off of here. Then I'll spend some time answering comments, and then I'm going to get back to doing some protesting. Oh, here we go. I thought there were limits on how much they could increase the valuation. Mine went up 18.5%. Is this increase typical? Great question. I'm glad you asked it. So many people have this same exact question, and I can't believe I didn't even touch it yet. So Joshua, I'm glad that you re-commented again. This market value, there's no cap on that at all. So if you look here, gosh, dog. Okay, so this one, you see how this one says 181? This one says 170. The reason is because of the homestead exemption cap. It's capped out at 10% growth, but the thing is, this market value number, there's no cap on the market value number. That can go up to any number. There's no limit on that whatsoever. Whatever they think your home is worth, that's what it'll go up to. But the appraised value is capped at 10% growth per year. So that's what it is. Now, 2 years ago, they actually passed a law saying the budget could not increase for schools and cities. And that was talking about a different part of the equation. I'm going to show you where it is. So that was talking about the tax bill side, which is the budget side, the revenue side. That's not allowed to increase more than, I think, 2.5% for cities, maybe 3% for counties. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but let's see. Crop. See what I come up with here. Whatever it is. Anyway, so there's a cap 3.5% on. Anyway, you can go just like I am. They put a cap on the revenue side, but so there are different caps involved, but the cap on your value is the cap on the appraised value, and that is it. So, all right, appreciate it. I'm going to reach out to everybody else in the comments. Thank you so much for your support. Pass the word along. If you know of anybody needing to buy or sell a house, please send them our way. It means the world to us. Your support means a whole lot. Thank you so much. Have a great day.